What's going on, everyone? It's time for the weekly Kenai Peninsula fishing report. In this video, we will go over all of the emergency orders and government regulations, as well as news and some on the ground field reporting for the fishing conditions here on the Kenai Peninsula. First of all, I'm just going to get right into it. The king salmon are here. We're looking at a pretty good spring run, better than last year's, that's for sure. And we got some good news to start with. So, as for emergency orders and press releases, the Ninilchik River bag limit has increased, and the Ninilchik River bag limit increase and removal of annual limit for hatchery king salmon. So that's great news. We're going to be able to keep some more kings coming out of the Ninilchik. Other emergency orders, no news here, but the Anchor River and Deep Creek are still closed to fishing, and the king salmon restrictions in the Cook Inlet saltwaters, that's within a mile of those rivers, are still closed. But let's go over and look at some good news here. The Ninilchik River bag limit increase and removal of annual limit for hatchery king salmon. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game is increasing the bag and possession limits of hatchery king salmon 20 inches or greater in length from one fish to two fish, and removing the annual limit of hatchery king salmon 20 inches or greater in length in the Ninilchik River. These changes are effective 12:01 a.m. Saturday, June 12th through October 31st. So this just happened. This is big news. This is in response to the good runs that we are seeing here on the rivers. As of June 7th, a total of 292 wild and 531 hatchery king salmon have been counted on the lower Ninilchik River weir and escaped above the sport fishery. Based on the 2018-2019 average run timing at this counting location, these counts should represent approximately 24% of this year's wild run and 19% of the hatchery run. It is likely the wild run will meet the sustainable escapement goal of 750 wild fish at the upper weir and will be sufficient to support broodstock collection for the 2022 Ninilchik River stocking. The hatchery escapement is also projected to exceed broodstock collection needs for the 2022 stockings. Now let's go to a quote here from the local biologist, Mike Booz. Fishing for hatchery king salmon in the Ninilchik River has been good this year so far due to a strong run of hatchery fish. Increasing the bag limit and removing the annual limit should provide anglers extra king salmon harvest opportunity this season and help reduce the number of hatchery fish in the escapement. So if you guys are listening, it sounds like they actually want you to catch a little bit more hatchery fish to get them out of there and leave some room for the wild ones. So go do your part, go catch some salmon down in the Ninilchik this week. Changing gears, let's look at the USGS data for the Kenai River at Cooper Landing, everyone's favorite river here. And it is starting to warm up, both literally and figuratively. The temperature in water degrees Celsius, let's see here, we're at about, well, 6.5 degrees Celsius, and that's about 43 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's pretty stable. We actually had some cooling days last week, June 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We dropped down to almost 40 degrees Fahrenheit water temperature, but it quickly spiked back up. If anyone is out over the weekend, you'll know how warm it really was. And that's good news. We want that water warming up. We want those fish running in. Let's see our air temperature, some pretty wild swings. We saw highs of 65 down to below 40 degrees. And then over this past couple of days, we're reaching almost 75 degrees here at Cooper's Landing. So summer is here, and we're excited to see it. I know June 21st is technically the first day of summer, but we're ready for it. Discharge cubic feet per second, pretty stable, from about 5,800 to about 6,300. However, if we look at the gauge height in feet, that's gone from 10.3 to 10.5. So a pretty substantial increase there with water going through the river. And that's going to wake up those kings and the sockeye, especially in the ocean, hopefully get them running up river pretty soon here. Speaking of sockeye, let's talk about some fishing reports, some freshwater fishing from the state. Let's see here. This is straight from the Alaska Department of Fish and Game website. We still have the same restrictions on early run king salmon. Only king salmon less than 34 inches in length may be retained. No bait is allowed on the Kenai River. Kenai salmon fishing on the Kenai River is slow to fare and water levels are high and the river is turbid. The flowing waters of the Kenai River mainstream upstream of the lower Kili River Market and all Kenai River tributary streams are closed to fishing May 1st through June 10th to protect spawning rainbow trout. So that's actually some interesting news because that just opened. So if you guys are looking to catch some rainbow trout right after their spawn, this might be a good time to do it. You hit that main part of the Kenai River just upstream of the Lower Kili River. That's just opened. So if you guys want to catch some rainbows, this might be a good time of year to do it. I know it's early in the spring, so they haven't been fattened up eating eggs and dead salmon all season, but they might be pretty active there. So I recommend giving that a go if you want to catch some rainbows. The Upper Kenai and Russian rivers are closed to fishing sockeye salmon all the way through June 11th. So it looks like that is now open. So that's awesome. And we'll look at the sockeye salmon numbers. Still not too many sockeye coming in, but they're coming. Let's see. The Kasilof River King salmon fishing is fair. Try fishing for them at Crooked Creek State Park. Now, I've been down at the Kasilof River a few times this week, and I was throwing egg patterns, and I just couldn't get a bite. I caught a nice steelhead, but couldn't get a bite with a king. A lot of guys were catching them, and a lot of guys were throwing bait because you can use bait down at the Kasilof, and they weren't catching them. The best tactic that I saw working, people just flossing for kings, casting out there. One guy worked the water for about 4 or 5 hours, and he finally got one. Now, that being said, I did see this guy hook into 5 of them when I was there for about 3 hours. I didn't hook into any. So while he was packing up ready to go, I went over there obviously to take his spot, number 1. But number 2, I asked him what he was throwing, and this guy was just flossing, just throwing a hook out there, trying to catch him by the mouth, and he was hooking into a lot of them. So maybe that's the way to go if you're on the Kasilof. Just work that water and try to catch a king with that strategy. Let's see, any more emergency orders? There is one. If you guys are wanting to hit up Stormy Lake, which is north of Kenai, the Arctic char and Dolly Varden are all catch and release. That's coming off of the 2013 season when they poisoned the lake to kill all of the northern pike that somebody put in there. We're still trying to bring back that Arctic char, Dolly Varden population. They're slow growing fish, but hopefully in a couple of years we'll be able to catch those again. So let's take a look at some fish counts here since we finally have fish counts to look at. First of all, the Anchor River Chinook for 2021. We saw a little spike there over the past week. And so I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see the salmon are coming back. Maybe they'll reopen the Anchor River. But let's see our total counts here. We have 1,078 for the year compared to 406 this time last year. So that's really good news. There was a big spike. The canes came later than expected, but we got a lot of them. So that's good for the populations down there. Good news there. Let's take a look at the Ninilchik. They just kind of reopened this one and let you keep 2 of the hatchery salmon. And yeah, I mean, there's a giant spike there over the past week, and that's just great news. Let's take a look at the numbers. This time last year, there was 379, but this year, 969. And so that's awesome, more than double what we saw last year. And that's why the Ninilchik River fishing is kind of reopened there for fishermen. We'll take a look at the Kenai Chinook runs. It's an okay spring run. It's not the worst spring run we've seen. We had some high hopes. There was a couple of big spikes there where we thought they're going to keep coming up, but then it dropped down again. So we'll look at the raw numbers here. So as of, let's see, this is June 12th. We have 2,109 salmon have come through the Kenai River. This time last year, 989. Now, 2 years ago, there were 2,453, but 3 years ago, there was only 1,820. Now, of course, we had that great run about 5 years ago, 4,282 would have. So we're only at half the big run from 2017. We're at half their numbers, but over the last 3 years, it's the second best run. So it's okay. It's not bad news. So if it's not bad news, it's probably good news. And then, of course, let's look at the Russian River sockeye. We're just starting to see an uptick in sockeye a little bit later than last year. They're coming in, but that's to be expected. It's been a late spring. It's been cold. So June 12th was the first date that we saw some sockeye come through, and there's been 91 of or 80 of them came through. So before that, there was only 11. So it looks like it's just starting to hit, and we're excited for that sockeye run to take off here. Other than that, some more stuff that I've been seeing on the water. I've been doing a little bit of ocean fishing. Still no halibut from the beaches, but I did catch nice dogfish again. Yeah, if you guys want dogfish, you'll definitely be able to catch them. As far as the king salmon go, everyone's still on the Kasilof, going for kings there. I did go up to Hope to try to get some ocean run Dolly Varden at Resurrection Creek. I didn't catch anything. I was fishing for about 2.5 hours, right where the water comes in. Now I was fishing at low tide. Maybe you want to fish at a high tide. There might be some more fish in the stream. Uh, but still the fishing's a little bit slow. The Nilchik's good news. If you want to catch a king, you got to work it. You got to floss, and you might be able to get one at the Kasilof. But if you're flossing, give it a go. Or just might. I'm thinking about just waiting until there's some sockeye salmon in the river, and that way I can catch a little bit more meat for the freezer. Well, guys, if you like that video, share, like, subscribe. We're gonna do this every single week here, and as the fishing picks up, I'll talk about it, so you'll be the first to know.